Welcome back to I'm Glad You're Here. Today's episode is with Carly Hill, a licensed social worker turned entrepreneur. Carly is a therapist, but also a certified life and success coach, a certified NLP and timeline therapy practitioner, a certified hypnotherapist, an author, and a Reiki master. I first discovered Carly's work via her Therapist to Coach Accelerator program. She helps support therapists pivot into developing and launching a signature coaching program. Carly is all about beating burnout and teaching therapists how to build scalable businesses. She speaks very matter-of-fact from her own research and experience and is fully transparent about the ways coaching has helped her scale her impact and revenue. I personally really appreciate how Carly not only has this accelerator program, but has a free Facebook group with tons of live trainings and information. This is a conversation on the differences between therapy and coaching and how Carly has been weaving the two together. I hope you enjoy, and let's get on to the episode. Let's dive in. So, hi, Carly. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm very honored to have you here. I'm really excited to dive in, learn more about you and your approach working with clients, your history as a therapist. And so to kick us off, I'd love to hear your story, your background.
It's almost like, where do I start when I get asked this question? It's such a loaded question. I'm a social worker by trade. I got into social work because I wanted to be a teacher, actually, and kids were always my passion. And then I started going to school and I was majoring in early childhood education. And then I was like, I really want to do more than just teach kids. Like, I want to be invested in their life. I want to do more than just teach them their ABCs and, speaking with guidance counselors and figuring out like what classes you have to take, etc. My mom was a social worker, so started exploring that. I always joke, they told me I didn't have to take math to be a social worker. And I was like, okay, sign me up. And then, I really just started acing all of my classes, moved on to become a therapist. I did play therapy for a while. I worked in community mental health. I was traveling all over the county, caseloads of 30 plus clients, going into court and being subpoenaed and a lot of things that come with the gruesome community mental health life. I went on to work at a brick and mortar brain performance center, which was such a cool job, scanning people's brains, doing therapy there.
That was also for kids?
It was all ages. We had, kids on the spectrum, ADHD, we had teens, we had elderly patients who had strokes, who would come in and we would train their brain. We trained our own brain for peak performance. We had professional athletes come in. It was really, really cool. Wow. But they shut down indefinitely. And then that's when I took the leap into entrepreneurship, which is a whole separate journey in and of itself. But that's kind of everything in a nutshell of where I started and where I am today.
And that leap was private practice for you?
It was. So that was the initial leap. Well, actually, the immediate leap was BetterHelp because I went into panic mode, like, holy shit, I don't have a job. And what am I going to do for money? And do I go back into 9-to-5 life? No, I've always wanted to start my private practice. So how do I do this? I'm just a social worker. I'm not a businesswoman. My husband majored in business. He's like, well, you need a business plan. And I'm like, what the hell is a business plan? I don't know how to do that, right? Like, flooded with limiting beliefs. And I did go on BetterHelp. It was such a joke. It was like $30 an hour. I think I lasted like 2 or 3 months there. And then really took the leap into private practice, getting my website setting up, figuring out my messaging, who it was I wanted to help. Luckily, I was known in the community, so I filled up pretty fast. But then you're stuck trading dollars for hours. And it wasn't the freedom that I thought it was going to be. Like, I got a taste of freedom, working from home, going to the gym when I want it, changing my laundry in between sessions, but I want it more. freedom. I wanted to be able to take vacations and still make money while I was on vacations. Like, how could I work smarter, not harder?
Mm-hmm.
When I was at my 9 to 5, I had like 4 jobs at the same time. I mean, I was doing child behavioral health assessments, going to my 9 to 5, the Brain Performance Center. I got certified in animal assisted therapy. So I was doing emotional support animal letters. And I was also, picking up other little side gigs so I could leverage my time. Like I would stare out the window thinking, gosh, I could be doing errands and making my returns and be at the gym right now. I could be so much more efficient with my time. So I think that was always innate within me. And the ingenuity really came out like, how can we make this shift? How can therapists work smarter, leverage their time, have freedom, have flexibility? There has to be a way.
Yeah. And so back then when you were working at that brain center, doing the ESA letters, was the feeling to have different income portals, or was it just to not put all the work in one place? Like what was kind of the thought back then?
Yeah, money was always a piece of it. I'm very transparent about dollars, and that was a hard thing for me to do, actually. I had to go to therapy to finally be able to announce my income. But, I was making $18 an hour with a master's degree when I graduated college. Mm-hmm. It was just like an insult, and you're labeled an intern. And then when I finally did get licensed, I was making $50,000 a year as a licensed clinical social worker. So money was definitely part of the drive, but it was also about leveraging my time. When I would be at my 9 to 5, sitting there, finished with all of my tasks, I'm like, well, what else could I be doing to be productive? Right. And if I could be productive and make money doing something that I loved, it was just a win-win all around.
Yeah. So then it sounds like there was always that mindset, like things can be different. And then it was that brain center shutting down that kind of forced you into private practice, into exploring, okay, well, now I'm on my own here. I got to find new ways.
Exactly. I mean, I wish I could say like, put my foot down and I'm doing the damn thing and I quit and I'm going to start my private practice. And I think I probably would have done that eventually, but it was the shift that got me started.
Yeah. And did you have clients come from that center, or when you opened, people just knew you were a therapist in the area, like that transition just happened?
Yeah. I had a few that followed, and then I had a few that even followed me from BetterHelp when I left there, which they encourage, which is cool because it's difficult for clients to hop around to different therapists. And then just word of mouth and my community, and really starting to create an online presence as well. So it was a combination of many different things, how I was obtaining my clients. But I think more than anything, it was word of mouth.
And then what about in terms of the niche or the group that you were working with? Was it when you started private practice that you realized like, oh, these are the clients that I enjoy, these are the problems I like working through, or did that come later?
Yeah, it's changed so many times. My messaging sucked really bad. And, you think when you start a private practice, okay, I need a website. You're like, okay, what the heck do I put on my website? It's like, well, I'm going to help people live their dream life. And it's so flowery, right? Like wake up to a reality that you love. And I didn't get clients because of my website. I got clients because of word of mouth and my personality, etc. But you don't know what you don't know. Nobody teaches us this stuff in school, right? And so niching down can be extremely hard for therapists because our hearts want to save the world. We don't want to alienate anyone. And it becomes this whole process of picking a population when you're used to morphing into whoever is in front of you. I worked with 4-year-olds and I worked with 80-year-olds and anyone in between. So it was difficult. Eventually, I landed on women empowerment coaching because at the same time, when I was doing my private practice, I actually realized I was coaching the whole entire time. I wasn't even doing quote unquote therapy. I thought I was because I'm a therapist and I had a private practice by trade. But when I really started studying the difference between therapy and coaching, and also studying the online industry and what do these coaches know that we don't know, and how are they so successful, and how can I add coaching, and how can I impact lives outside of the state that I'm licensed in? Like, I had this agonizing pain to impact more lives.
Mm-hmm.
I always say not in a cocky way, but like if just more people knew about me, I knew that I could transform their lives. I was integrating Reiki and tarot and neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis and timeline therapy and tapping and all of these just like wild, crazy, cool modalities that I was using in my own life. And when I started using them with clients and they started getting really, really fast results, more so than you would in maybe years of talk therapy, I was like, wait, you mean you're like good, you know? And they're like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, are you sure? Like, I was just really starting
We don't
to
need to
toe in the
revisit
water.
that. You're good.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, like I really want to just impact more people's lives in this way. But you can only see clients within your state that you're licensed in, right? So that's what led me to really study. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm doing coaching. I can. Mm-hmm. I'm not treating people for medical necessity. These are more situational, non-clinical, less severe problems. So I kind of created my own package integrating all of these things. I actually, at one point, started teaching therapists how I called it my 3-step success method. They could implement this with clients as well to get them faster results.
I see. So it started with, let me coach other therapists on what I'm getting results on with my clients, these kind of quick jam-packed sessions that actually have this lasting impact, which is unlike what you studied in therapy, what you've just experienced when you considered it talk therapy. All of a sudden, it was this new playing field, these tools that brought the client to much different and maybe faster results. Did people reach out to you, or you created that practice and started
I'm such
sharing
a natural teacher at heart. I think I'm just like shout it like, guys, like this is what's working. Are you kidding? Like, come join the party. This is it. You know, it's like I have this like newfound discovery and I just have to teach it. And same thing with private practice. You know, I was like, wow, like you guys can do it. Like you don't have to wait as long as I did. You know, make the leap. It's going to be okay. You're going to be safe. You know, these are the steps that I took. So I'm sure that people did reach out to me, but maybe they reached out because I was sharing and it's just the natural teacher at heart, which is how I created my Therapist to Coach Accelerator program and teaching therapists how to add coaching as well, because it was just everything that I had learned and implemented in my own business and life. Mm-hmm. And then I just teach it. So I guess it's a really full circle from my goal of wanting to be a teacher. I'm just teaching in a much different way than I ever thought I would.
Yeah. And I love that because we can expect our life to look one way and you still have those core values, that same mission. And now you're seeing it in this really expansive playing field. You're helping so many people. You just didn't know at the time that you started that you'd be helping therapists implement coaching programs.
Yeah. It was never the plan, but I've never felt more aligned and in alignment. Like this is just my jam. I'm obsessed with it in the best way possible. It's so much fun. I'm constantly studying the online coaching industry and I have so many goals and plans to continue helping therapists just break out of the box.
I love that. So, yeah. Okay, let's talk about the therapist box and the coaching landscape. Like what is the standard operating procedure as a therapist, an MFT, social worker? What is that career path if you're in private practice? And then we can dive into what the coaching landscape looks like.
Yeah. So traditionally, if you want to be an LCSW, an LMFT, LMHC, LPC, you go to school, right? You go on to get your master's and then you graduate and you have to have thousands of hours of clinical hours. As a social worker, you know, we have to wait 2 years. So even if we hit our hours prior to the 2 years, we have to be working under a licensed clinician for those 2 years, getting our hours, being supervised. We sit for our tests. pass our test. So everybody has an exam that they have to take. And so in that time, when you graduate with your master's, you're labeled an associate, you're labeled an intern, you're working on your hours. It's really as if you're still in school, is how I would describe it. And then you go on to pass your exam, get your L if you're an LCSW, right?
Your license, yeah.
And then you've like officially made it. That's how I felt, at least.
True. It's like this struggle. You're getting your hours, you're interning, you're an associate.
Yeah,
you're
everybody's like, you have to pay your dues. And like, you really, there's, in hindsight, there's so much brainwashing in school. Like private practice is the end goal. Like, you know, get your license and pay your dues. And so you're just like hustling and grinding and quote unquote paying your dues. Like in community mental health, I was knocking on people's windows to wake up for my session because I had to hit my hours.
Wow.
You know, I was doing therapy in parking lots and car hoods and banging on their windows. And it was
like
kind of
squeezing in
times,
all these hours.
Lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was paying my dues, right? So I think that, I mean, at least for me personally, like I remember even speaking to, you know, my now husband at the time, like there's nothing else for me. I thought truly like I was just paying my dues and I had to keep going through it. And private practice was going to be so much harder than it was. I mean, out of the gates now, like people are graduating with their masters and they're starting their private practice. And I think that's so incredible. So you can take a hop, skip, and a jump. Even when you have your private practice, I kind of alluded to you're still trading dollars for hours. There's still a lot of limitations. But I think truly there's a time and a place and a space for both therapy and coaching. So you can have your private practice, but you can also have additional revenue streams such as podcasting, public speaking, being an author, being a course creator, being a coach, being a consultant. And that all falls in not the therapy box. That falls in breaking out of the therapy walls and getting off the therapy couch and just expanding beyond your horizons that you can do so much more.
I love that. And so just reflecting, it's like there's a clear path to private practice. You have to get X hours based off of the license you're getting. You're quote unquote putting in your hours, accumulating. You can't do this independently. And then you can have a private practice versus everything else you're saying. You can start a podcast whenever you want. You can write a book. You can add coaching. You can do these things separate from a therapy license. And they can all be part of your wheelhouse and what you do.
And you can do those things as a therapist with a therapy license. I mean, coaching in particular, like you just want to make sure that it's separate business entity, separate bank account, you're taking the steps to protect your license. And I teach that. But I mean, you could absolutely be a therapist in a private practice and have a podcast and be an author, etc. But sometimes it's like we need a permission slip to do so. And I think that there's so many therapists expanding in such beautiful ways that we're all motivating each other. Like this is like a movement that's happening. And I really do think that the pandemic and telehealth, it made the necessary shifts and opened our eyes to the opportunities that we can have as therapists because we are skilled and we have passion and expertise and we're in a mental health crisis. We have been, and people need our help. And so if we can expand and we can help more people, but not sacrifice our freedom or our flexibility or our security, it is the most fabulous win-win that I could ever think of because you're impacting more lives and you have more freedom and you're doing what you love to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And so shifting to coaching in general, my understanding is I know there are like coaching programs, but it's not really regulated like a social work degree, MFT. There's not like one coaching program that makes someone a coach. So Are therapists that you train, are they going through a coaching program, or are they just kind of transferring their skills into a coaching pillar?
Most of them are transferring their skills. It's personal preference, right? So to your point, the coaching field is unregulated. You don't have to have a coaching certification. I think that therapists make the best coaches, in my opinion, and we should be on the forefront of the coaching industry. But I'm not poo-pooing on coaches who don't have a clinical background, because personally, I've worked with coaches who didn't have a clinical background and they changed my life.
Yeah.
So I think as long as whoever's providing services is in integrity, we're good to go. Mm-hmm. I've taken a coaching certification. I didn't learn anything that I didn't learn in grad school or post-grad certifications. It was a cool personal refresher for me, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's necessary. I see a ton of therapists thinking that they have to have a coaching certification before starting to implement services outside of the therapy box, and it holds them back because it's another expense. It's another few months or however long the coaching certification is. I love taking certifications. So I think if you are going to take a certification, take it within your niche. Like really learn something extra that you can then apply. Don't just take a certification because you think you need it, because nobody gives a shit about your credentials. They just need to know you and like you and trust you and know that you can solve their problem.
Yeah. So it's for your own personal confidence. If you're working with a specific population, you want to know more, get a specific tool, tap into that and share that. I think what you just said too, like just reflecting on everything we're saying about therapy and the path to therapy is so school-based and hour-based and credential-based. Therefore, coaching programs and all these trainings are probably that same kind of appeal that like, oh, I need to do that because I had to do all of this to become a therapist. So I like that you just called that out. And it's like programs can be great if they help you, if they give you the tools that you're wanting, that you may feel that you're lacking, but you may not be lacking the skills that you need to start your coaching program.
Yeah, well said.
So I'm curious about the journey. I mean, I guess it's been really natural for you to teach and to share. And was there kind of any hesitation jumping into the coaching platform yourself?
Yes, so much. So many. I don't believe in failure. There's only feedback, but setbacks, and learning lessons. There was limiting beliefs. My vision board is here next to me on the left. And I went on Word and I typed business strategist for therapists, and I printed it off and I cut it out and I taped it on my vision board and I took a picture of it and I sent it to all my friends and family. And I was like, hello, this is me now. Because when I was moving from therapist to coach, okay, like not much of a big deal. I'm still helping people in pretty much the same way. It's just with a different label. Mm-hmm. That wasn't difficult for me, where I know it is oftentimes difficult for some of my clients. They don't want to call themselves a coach. They think it's a downgrade. They work so hard for, their license, and there is limiting beliefs that come with that. Personally, that transition was fine for me. The larger transition that was difficult was going from therapist to business coach. But I had been doing it already, one-to-one, teaching therapists how to start their private practice, natural teacher at heart, doing all of this coaching myself, helping friends. But I was really claiming it and owning, like, wow, this is my expertise. This is what I do now. And I'm going to walk you through this and be your guide. And so that was a big transition for me personally. That came with a lot of limiting beliefs. But I really believe in the be, do, have model, where we have to shift at the identity level. Like I had to claim and be the business strategist for a therapist so that I could do the actions and post about it and offer my services so that I could have the thriving business that I have today and impact all of these therapists' lives.
Yeah, totally. It's like this meta thing going on in my mind because I'm like, you're a therapist turned coach, coaching therapist to be coach. Of course, you're like you need to embody, you need to practice what you're sharing because people and I really believe this even on social media, eventually, people can see through. If you don't really believe in your messaging, if it's not really working for you, then you're not going to fully show up. But when it is and it's proven and you're passionate, people are attracted to that and like, oh, I can be free as a therapist. I can not just go, okay, this hour I made this much, so I need X amount of clients to just stay above water, to pay back loans, whatever it is.
Exactly. And that's really when things took off. It's just when I fully claimed who I was, what I was doing. And like you said, your personality and your fire really comes through. Like, I'm incredibly passionate about this because this was my lived experience. I was a therapist. I was a coach. I am a business coach. I deeply know all three of these worlds. And it does make me uniquely positioned in this field.
What was your support like in that journey, in that transition? Who kind of inspired you when you were kind of trailblazing this path?
I always say that like spirit has me on an invisible leash. And
I love that.
like I was just kind of quaintly guided to next thing that guided me to next thing. It was like, come on, Carly, like do this. Like even losing my job in hindsight now, I was like, okay, spirit universe is just pushing me along.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody came into the center before I lost my job to quote unquote interview. And I was like, why are you here? Like, why am I interviewing you? You are so much more qualified. And she had a neuro-linguistic programming training going on. That's who I took the NLP training, the
wow.
tapping training, the hypnosis training, coaching certification. And a week later, I lost my job, but I signed up for her training. So it was like, that's where it started,
Mm-hmm.
And then I took the training and I met somebody new who was like, hey, Carly, you want to go to Reiki with me? And I'm Googling, what is Reiki? And then sounded good. We're going to lay with blankets and candles and just kind of vibe out. I was like, cool, sign me up. Went to Reiki. Every synchronicity in my life started falling into place. I'm like, what is happening? And I really, truly just became obsessed with that. Went on to get my Reiki master and become certified. But I was just being guided from one thing to another thing. So when I think about my support system, I think that, yes, it's my family, it's my friends, it's my husband, it's, mentors. I'm constantly investing in business coaches and programs and mentors, but I think that the support is so much deeper and energetic and universal. Like it's like quantum field support that I just can't even fully describe. And I think that it comes from being in alignment and taking the necessary steps to stay in alignment.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something so powerful. And I was thinking of the same word, alignment, too. It's like the experiences you had leading up to losing your job were necessary for you to empathize and to understand the path of therapy. Like I tried this kind of clinic, this private practice, all the things. Like I've experienced the full spectrum. And then losing that job is almost clearing the path to then be in alignment. It was okay, now that you're open, now that this NLP trainer is magically there and Reiki is now opening to you the opportunities, it's leading you in the path. It's really, really cool.
I remember talking to my mom on the phone, just like telling her all the things that we're having. She's like, can you just like, wait a minute, I need to get a pen and paper because I can't keep up with like what it was like speed of light synchronicities. And I still feel that way today. Like I just describe it as quantum leaping, like making a significant amount of growth in such a short period of time that shouldn't really be possible if you were to like calculate or think about it and reverse engineer how that could happen, but it happens.
Yeah. And I'm curious like how that felt I don't know, I'm thinking like your nervous system or like like playing catch up, or was it this kind of smooth, like you were just open to these opportunities and it was just there and you were guided, or was there a kind of resistance, discomfort, any of that awkwardness?
I think I was just kind of rolling with the punches. And I do remember thinking, like, wow, I'm growing so fast, I can't keep up with myself. Like, I was part of this networking group, and we met once a month. Each time I would go to the networking group where you have to like stand up and introduce yourself, I would introduce myself as a new person, like doing something completely new. Like, I was a
Yeah.
therapist accepting clients, and then I was a women empowerment coach doing energy healing. And then I was a business coach for
Mm-hmm.
therapists, helping them get faster results or starting their private practice. Then I was, doing events for therapists, which I still do today. And basically like a mini retreat leader, and also helping therapists add coaching. And I was just rolling with the punches.
Yeah. Well, that group also
Yeah.
just sounds incredible that you could show up and fully embody the next version of yourself every time you were there.
Yeah. I mean, it was always a bit uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
like, what are people going to think of me? Or like, here I go, like,
Yeah.
this is me again now. But that's where I really had to, goes back to like printing it off and taping it on my vision board. I was just almost like put my foot down, like, okay, this is me now. I feel like
Mhm.
it would have been much more difficult for me if I couldn't own it.
Yeah.
But I did the work to own it first so that the steps became easier and it could feel like the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the alignment as well.
Totally. And there's a piece too of kind of surrendering to what that next version of you is. Like, okay, I'm actually letting go of that because now I'm this. And so now I'm embodying and I'm doing this. And then when the next one comes, it's like, okay, yeah, that's kind of silly because I just told everyone that I'm that, but now I'm this. And I'm constantly evolving because this thing is bigger than me.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think on the topic of surrendering and going back to like my vision board, like I always set goals for myself. I always casted visions and would energetically feel into them, but then I would surrender. And so
Mm.
I feel like a lot of people, when they think surrender, they think like, well, it is what it is. It'll happen when it happens. Like, it's like you really surrendering means you keep the vision in your heart, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
yours in the future, but how it happens and when it happens is none of your business. And then
Mm.
it would ruin the surprise, right? And then you
Mm-hmm.
continue to take the inspired action. So it's holding everything that is true to you that will happen in the future close to you while you still go through those limiting beliefs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the work is not just like, okay, yeah, so it's up to whoever to get that to happen for me. It's there's resistance here because that's uncomfortable. Oh, that reminds me of this triggering event. And okay, I have to work through all of these things. And the surrender
Yeah.
is building that trust. And I love that you just said that aligned action piece. You're not just sitting back like, okay, whenever it happens, but also
Yeah. I would say the
taking the
universe is
steps.
not a vending machine or like a Starbucks order. Like, you can't just like roll up to the window and be like, I'll have this dream, and this dream. And then it just plops into your life. Right.
Yeah.
But it is rolling up to the window and being like, I would like this dream, and this dream. And then knowing that I always imagine that like little elves are in the quantum field, like, I'm on it, Carly, the order has been in, and they're just like up there, like shifting and moving all the energy. And they're just like opening portals for aligned action to just happen. And that's where
Mm.
like the invisible leash comes in, where it's like, you put the order in, right? But then how
Mm-hmm.
it happens and when it happens is none of your business. You take inspired, aligned action, and gateways will open up for you to quantum leap. It's like leaving space for
Yeah.
miracles.
Mm. I love that. I love that. Can you give us an example of inspired action, inspired aligned action, whether that was first starting off or any of the iterations of you, or even currently in what you're building for yourself now?
I think it's been different for everyone.
Yeah.
And I've been with business mentors who are like, rah, rah, get your action steps done, you know, very kind of in their masculine energy. And then I've been completely on the other side, working with coaches where they're like, only take action when you completely feel inspired and aligned. And then I was kind of like living in la la land for a little while and just like not taking action because there was tedious little tasks in my business that I didn't necessarily want to do. And I was like, well, that doesn't feel quote unquote aligned, right? But, I'm not inspired to do these taxes right now. You know what
Totally.
I mean? So I think that the first part of taking an inspired action is one, finding your balance and not being too far right or too far left, but also casting your visions first. So you know what actions you're even working towards. Like, what is your why behind your inspired actions?
That's huge. That intention piece.
Exactly. The intention piece.
I love that. And in therapy and also working with coaches, I totally get what you're saying, where people can be on either side of that yin yang, masculine, feminine, like go, 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 do all the things, or just receive. And you have to find your personal balance there. If you have that vision, you've created that North Star for yourself, you can also tap into what that aligned action is for you. And you can find that balance of the two.
And it's kind of like reverse engineering from there, right? So make your vision board. And then your job is really to feel into it. So we know everything works through resonance. Everything is energy, right? So when we think about the law of attraction, like attracts like, everything works through resonance. You can't just think about your dream partner and then they'll just show up, right? You have to take the aligned action steps to raise your energetic frequency, raise your energetic home, move up on the consciousness scale so that you can then attract. And that's what I mean by like everything works through resonance. It's all energy. So the question becomes, how can we take action to be an energetic match for what it is that we want to call into our life? How can we stay high on love and above with the scale of consciousness? And whether that looks like journaling for you and like feeling into it, whether I like to work out and I'll like do mountain climbers towards my goals, or, you know, I'll go on a talking rant and I'll be like, you know, it happened and this happened and I can't believe it and it happened better than I thought. And then if anybody takes anything away from today, it's how can I raise my vibration so that I can be in alignment to welcome in and attract everything that I would like to manifest in my life.
Yeah. I also like the idea, it sounds like you're visual, you create a vision board, you print something out, and just going back to that thought too, it can be journaling. It can be a voice memo to a friend or a conversation with your higher self. I like adding that permission slip too, of finding that tool that works best for you to see that vision, to feel it, to get connected with it.
And then inspired action will come only when you're in alignment. Because if action comes and you're not in alignment, you're going to be trying to force it. It's going to feel like a chore to get everything done. And it would be so much more fun to just be flowing and let it feel easy and take that path of least resistance. And that goes back to like where, you know, I felt like I was like rolling with the punches and like spirit had me on an invisible leash. Like, and that's not to discount all of the limiting beliefs and challenges that come along with that, because there absolutely is. But in the grand scheme of things, looking back on my journey thus far, I contribute a lot of my success to alignment.
Absolutely. And also what I'm hearing too, again, with this unlearning, kind of how we're taught to struggle, to go to school, get the education, to climb the ladder, to, you know, always be looking at the people around you and kind of mimicking what they're doing and kind of trying to just copy. And then what we're talking about here is finding that alignment, connecting with alignment. And it's okay if it's easy. It's okay if those kind of nudges and those inspired actions make your life easier. And that kind of relates to everything we're talking to about that therapy to coaching. Like, it's okay if that jump actually opens up all of these doors. If you dive much more deeply into your niche and you get to work with the clients you just want to work with, you have that freedom, you have that full expression, you do the trainings that fuel and inspire you to keep working with that client, to maybe switch that client base to kind of just play and enjoy it.
Yeah. Whatever it is you're doing, just play the what if game. Wouldn't it be fun if I did this? Or wouldn't it be fun? Like, what if I tried this out? What if that could be my reality? Let other people inspire you. You can be inspired, or you can look at them and be intimidated, right? Like, take your pick, and you can be whoever you want to be at any given time. You have permission to change and try new things on and see what lands, see what sticks, see what feels good, see what doesn't.
Yeah.
And so if we can take even some of the seriousness off of transitions in our lives and allow them to be more of an experiment, knowing that we will continue forever and ever to grow and evolve, magic can happen.
I love that. I'm curious right now who are some of the people that you look to for inspiration that are maybe in a similar field or different, and you're just like, I'd like to incorporate that.
Yeah, that's such a loaded question. I always get asked, like, what books am I reading? What podcasts am I listening to? What mentors? And it honestly changes every day. So, I mean, I could be listening to or reading a book on money or how to improve your close rate. I could be listening on something on taxes or starting a nonprofit or something on energy and alignment. It's like, I really try to listen to my body and my mind. And it's like, what am I currently needing most?
Yeah.
And sometimes it can shift from month to month or seasons in my life, or it could be day to day where I feel like I'm really needing some money mindset work, or I feel like I'm really needing some business inspiration, strategy work. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. Everything you're saying, I'm thinking, to me, hearing that your inspiration is what your current needs are, and it's getting in touch with whatever that is, whether you're feeling that somatically or you know that in your head. It's, I'm gravitating towards learning this, I'm gravitating towards understanding this concept and applying that into my life wherever that fits.
Yeah, it's like somebody asked me what my daily routine was the other day, and I was like, that's so funny. I don't have one. I don't have a morning routine, or like, I really just listen to my body. And of course I have priorities and I have checklists and I have teams that I'm managing. And, you know, I'm a very organized person, but more intuitive over anything.
Yeah. Everything in this discussion is also finding your personal balance within that. If you need a list and you need the inspiration, if you need a rigid routine, if you don't, just tapping into intuitively what makes you flow best.
And maybe it's hearing what 5 people's day looks like, and you try on each one of those and you see what lands for you and you see what doesn't, and then you make your own Mod Podge version of what works for you. So I think in life and business and your career and your relationships, it's finding your own creative process.
I love that. I appreciate that so much. And as we kind of start to close out here, I'm curious, I don't think we've touched on this, and I just want to clarify quickly if you can, because I know and I follow you and I've seen you define this before, but can you just define the difference between therapy and coaching?
So my definition is very simple, because this can be very complicated and probably a whole separate conversation. Therapy is treating medical necessity. Coaching is working with more situational, non-clinical less severe problems.
Got it.
So you can still use all of your clinical modalities that you're trained in as a therapist in coaching. It really comes down to the severity of the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Are you treating medical necessity, or is it that more situational, non-clinical, less severe problem?
Got it. And that is something that you can assess immediately with a client, like what are we working with? And if you want to be doing coaching and that person's presenting something more severe, you can say, I can refer you to someone, or I'm focusing on coaching and I think you can
Yeah.
use more therapy.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, you should be able to use your clinical discernment. And also, this is where having a niche, and I teach therapists to have a coaching curriculum, a program where it's really hyper niche, teaching a very specific population to get from problem to solution. And when you're picking that population and you're picking that problem, you're choosing your niche with coaching in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard to go into treating medical necessity, even if you tried, when you have a curriculum that client is going through and then you're answering questions.
That gives so much clarity. And
it's like you're a teacher.
Yeah, right. You have a curriculum, you have a path. If you're teaching 5th grade US history, you're not all of a sudden going to teach a science experiment. Absolutely. I think it's because, and I am a very open person, and I've worked with a lot of coaches and I've done some really powerful, amazing work. And it's still newer. It's still unregulated. That coming back to that integrity piece, if you're choosing a niche, if you're creating a curriculum, if you're creating a flow to take people through a situational problem, there's kind of more quantifiable outcomes. There's a process.
Exactly.
And then it's not just all in the ether.
Measurable, quantifiable. Yeah. And that's also what makes it a viable, marketable niche from a business perspective.
Absolutely. I think it was important to make that definition, and something in me just clicked too, and hearing that description. So super appreciate it. Yeah. I want to leave some space if there's anything that you're feeling called to share here as we kind of wind down. I know that you do a lot of coaching for therapists.
That's such a loaded question. I mean, I could answer this in so many different ways, and I want to be intentional about how I answer it. I think that when you have a feeling in your body that you're meant for more, and you have an itch that you haven't yet scratched to fulfill something, and you just don't know what it is yet, but you have that intuitive feeling that like something else is coming, you're meant for more, that itch will not go away until you scratch it, and it will continue to come up and up again. And life is way too short. I mean, I think we live like 47,000 weeks, if we're lucky, to live in fear. And so when we think about fear, we have the acronyms of fuck everything and run. Like if we can just switch the narrative to rise, face everything and rise, and scratch the itch and lead with curiosity and play that what if game and let it be fun. And try new things on, knowing that you will forever and ever continue to grow and evolve. You have nothing to lose. It's all part of your story. Just give it a shot and believe in yourself, because it will all make sense and it will all turn out possibly better than you even expected.
I love that. And face everything and rise. Very powerful.
And that can apply to anything in life.
Thank you so much. And where can we find you? How do we connect with you?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm Carly Hill Coaching. And if you're a therapist and you're listening, you can join the Therapist to Coach Accelerator Facebook group. It's free. I have tons and tons of trainings and resources and free guides and cheat sheets in there as well, if you want to break outside of the therapy box.
Awesome. Well, Carly, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And hearing your story and just demystifying coaching, helping us understand it more, it was all really great.
Incredible.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Bye-bye.